talking about being keepers at home. In our last discussion, we looked at the Proverbs 31 woman, and we looked at all the things that she did to keep her home, especially the verse that said that she looketh well to the ways of her household. And what it meant to look well to the ways of her household is to look forward, to look beyond what's in front of her, and to make sure she's prepared and her family is prepared, and that her seed and her husband's seed goes on from generation to generation. So she took care of her household, and it was more than what we see nowadays. It was truly helping to keep the family and the tribe and community alive, and have a good quality of life. So today I want us to continue on our mission and looking at historical examples of what it meant to be a worker at home, or a keeper at home, or even guardian at home, as our definitions from our last discussions have shown us that what keeper means. So we're going to be going in and out of a book called Women, Race, and Class by Angela Davis. She has really good historical accounts of especially looking at women and what their role was in colonial America and after the Industrial Revolution. So we're going to look at some of those things. And also, we're going to be reading from a book called Good Women of a Blessed Land, A Well-Blessed Land by Brandon Marie Miller for our references today. So to continue on looking at our examples, we're going to go right into Angela Davis's book, page 225. And we're going to look at an example of colonial America before the Industrial Revolution. It says, a woman's work began at sunup and continued by firelight, as long as she could keep her eyes open. For 2 centuries, almost everything that the family used or ate was produced at home under her direction. Remember that the apostle has given the mandate to the churches that the woman is to guide the house. Okay, the same thing in the Proverbs 31 woman. She gave a portion to her maidens. That means she gave direction to them and what they should be doing. She spun and dyed the yarn that she wove into cloth, and cut and hand stitched into garments. Same thing with our Proverbs 31 woman. She spun on her spindle the yarn, the thread that you use to make cloth, which you use to make garments, and she did the same exact thing. She grew much of the food her family ate and preserved enough to last the winter months. Again, the woman in Proverbs planted a vineyard with the fruit of her hands, and she also looked a little bit more into the future to see what she needed to prepare her family. So it said her family is not afraid of the winter, because she has clothed them, she has prepared food for the winter, or stored food. So the same thing that the woman here is doing. She made butter, cheese, bread, candles, and soap, and knitted her family stockings. So it hasn't really changed since over 2,000 years ago until the 1800s, as we read here. Now I want us to go into another account just to look at another example of the Native American women, even during this time, and what they did for their families. Now we're going to go into the Good Women of a Well-Blessed Land, page 11. And I'm showing these examples because it's not just one group of people, one group of women that are taking care of their families and that had a very significant economic role in their households, but it was across the board. they may have changed in different societies, and the needs of the families and communities change from, let's say, an Eskimo and what her family needs to a woman in Africa and what her family needs. But the idea is the same, is to take care of the family, of the community, and their basic necessities. Page 11, it says, this is talking about the Native American women and during the time of the colonial America. It says, a woman's life centered on her village and home. Without her efforts, the tribe could not survive. In the management of household affairs, the husband leaves everything to his wife and never interferes, explained a missionary, which was a European religious teacher, who lived among the Lenape, the Delaware tribe. A woman fetched water and gathered wood to stoke her cooking fires and warm her home. She created the tools and goods her family needed, which were woven baskets and sacks, clay pots, leather pouches, and dishes made of tree bark. Women also built the tribe's homes. Now you might see a lot of this when you see a nomadic tribe or tribes where they would reconstruct their homes, whether it was logs. Some of them used log cabins and had to reconstruct as they moved along. Some, of course, used teepees and other such housing. But not only the Native Americans, women built their houses, but also the Maasai tribe in Africa. So we're just going through some examples of the different ways that women kept their homes. So it was beyond cooking and cleaning, even though those are very necessary things. It was much more to it than that. So let's look at the example of the Maasai tribe in Africa. Now Angela Davis goes to Africa and watches the Maasai women. And she says here, among the Maasai, as I learned, women are responsible for all domestic activities, thus also for the construction of their nomadic people's frequently relocated houses. Housework, as far as Maasai women are concerned, entails not only cooking, cleaning, and child rearing, and sewing, etc., but house building as well. As important as their men's cattle raising duties may be, the women's housework is no less productive and no less essential than the economic contributions of Maasai men. Now, it's a point to her discussion here in comparing what the economic contribution is of the women and of the men. Because we're going to go a little bit later on into another discussion when we look at the Industrial Revolution and see how the mentalities and mindsets have changed regarding the different spheres of influence that men and women have economically. So let's continue on our path and look at, continuing to Davis on page 226. Look at some more examples of what women's responsibilities were in the family and their community. Page 226, and it says, colonial women were not house cleaners or housekeepers, but rather full-fledged and accomplished workers within the home-based economy. Not only did they manufacture most of the products required by their families, they were also